How many of these 18 tricks could you set up before your next sit that would have a buck standing in your shooting lane inside of 60 minutes? Not next season, not after you buy new gear, before your next hunt with what you already have in your truck, your kitchen, or your garage right now. I spent 5 seasons testing every scent trick, every sound trick, every positioning trick that hunters on Archery Talk, Bow Sight, GON, Michigan Sportsman, and Missouri Whitetails have been arguing about for 20 years, and I narrowed it down to the 18 that produce same-day results on trail cameras, or put a deer in front of me during the sit I deployed them. Not tricks that should work. Tricks that did work, documented with camera timestamps and kill photos from hunters who had no reason to lie to strangers on the internet. Every trick on this list costs under $10, most cost nothing, and every one is designed to produce a response within minutes to hours, not days or weeks. The last one on the list is the single highest percentage encounter window of the entire month, and it requires 0 products, 0 setup, and 0 money. It just requires you to be the only hunter dumb enough to go when everybody else stays home. Let's get into it, starting with the one that most hunters are missing every single weekend of the rut. Trick 1 is the downwind bedding perimeter at 10 a.m., and this is the trick that changed my entire approach to sit timing. Most hunters are in the truck by 8:30, convinced the morning hunt is over. What they don't realize is that by 10 a.m., a doe that bedded at 8 has been laying in the same spot for 2 hours. Her scent is at maximum concentration, percolating outward from the bedding area on the thermals that are just starting to shift. A mature buck doesn't walk into the bedding area to find her. He cruises the downwind edge, scent-checking every doe bedded inside without ever exposing himself. That's why your cameras show him at 10:30 and 11 a.m. on the downwind side of the thicket, but never at 7 a.m. in the food plot. The midday window between 10 and 2 is when mature bucks move in daylight during the rut, and most hunters miss it entirely because they're eating breakfast. I killed my best buck 2 seasons ago at 11:15 a.m. on a Tuesday from a stand that I almost didn't sit past 9 because nothing was moving. Everything moved between 10 and noon. I just had to be patient enough to still be there when it happened. Bring food, bring water, bring a book. The midday sit rewards patience and punishes impatience. Trick 2 is urinating directly into a mock scrape on your walkout, not your walk-in. This sounds crude, and it is, but a buck returning to his scrape and detecting an unknown competitor's scent deposited in his communication hub triggers an immediate territorial response. He works the scrape within hours to reassert dominance. Validated by outdoor life and confirmed with trail camera photos showing same-day scrape activity after human urine application. It costs nothing, and multiple forum hunters confirmed it triggers faster response than most commercial buck urines. I'll be honest, I felt ridiculous the first time I did this, standing over a scrape in the dark, wondering what my life had come to. But the camera showed a buck working that scrape 6 hours later, and the scrape had been dead for 2 weeks before that. The logic is simple. The scrape is a message board, and you just wrote a message from a stranger. Trick 3 is the anise oil breadcrumb chain. Instead of 1 wick at your stand, place 2 to 3 drops of pure anise oil every 50 yards along the trail leading to your position. Each application point stops the deer, engages his nose, and redirects his attention forward along the trail. A single wick at your stand is a point source. The deer might hit it from 40 yards or miss it entirely depending on the wind. You're not creating 1 curiosity point. You're creating a chain of decision points, each one confirming the direction he should travel, each one pulling him closer to your lane. The oil base survives light rain and stays active 48 hours or more. I covered anise in depth in the previous video, but the breadcrumb application is what turns a single curiosity scent into a directional pull. A buddy who hunts public land in West Virginia set up a 4-point chain along 200 yards of ridge trail and had a buck follow it point by point on camera, pausing at each station for 5 to 10 seconds before continuing to the next one. The deer followed the chain like he was reading road signs. Trick 4 is the cold front morning. This is the single most reliable weather-based hunting window I've found in 5 years of tracking weather against camera data. The 12 to 24 hours after a cold front passes activates deer that sat out the front. They're hungry, they're moving toward food at first light, and the temperature drop itself stimulates movement. David Blanton has talked about this extensively, Your only job is to get between the bedding timber and the primary food source before thermals activate. The cold front has already done the work, you just have to be in position. I check the 10-day forecast obsessively starting in late October. When I see a front passing through, I clear my schedule for the morning after. 3 of my last 5 bucks came on cold front mornings. That's not a big enough sample to prove anything, but the pattern is consistent enough that I plan my vacation days around fronts now. Trick 5 is rapid response rattling, not blind rattling from the stand, hoping something walks in. Reactive rattling. When you spot a buck at 80 to 150 yards heading away or about to enter cover, immediately start a full aggressive crash sequence. A fight sound 100 yards away gives him an immediate reason to redirect before he commits to cover. Field research on rattling shows the bulk of responses happen within the first few minutes. This is the fast response version, competing with his forward momentum, using the one sound that overrides a buck's travel agenda during the rut. The key is aggression. A tentative tickle from 100 yards doesn't carry and doesn't convince. You need a full crash, antlers smashing together for 15 to 20 seconds, loud enough that the buck at 100 yards can hear it clearly and feel the urgency. Then silence. Let him decide. Trick 6 is freshening an existing scrape on your walk-in with one broken branch. If there's a scrape near your stand, rake the soil with a stick from the area. Break the licking branch slightly so it hangs fresh. A scrape that looked abandoned yesterday with fresh raked soil and a freshly broken branch this morning reads as a new buck working the area. The buck who owns that scrape may investigate within the first hour. Combined with Trick 2, the human urine on walkout, this creates a complete, new competitor just moved in signal. That layered approach to scrape communication is what I organized into the Buck Hunter's Bible, along with 76 other tricks, each with the biology behind it. 90 pages covering scent control, mock scrape activation, stand placement by terrain, all 3 rut phases, and a chapter of old-timer methods. There's a pre-hunt reference card at the back you can print and take to the stand. Links in the description below this video, or if you're watching on a TV, pull out your phone and scan the QR code on screen. Trick 7 is the estrus drag trail that terminates at your stand instead of passing it. Most hunters drag scent past their position. The deer follows the trail and keeps walking. Angle your drag trail so it ends 15 yards directly in front of your stand, approaching from 200 yards out. The buck follows the trail committed, head down, and arrives in your shooting lane still focused on the scent source below rather than scanning for danger above. The trail doesn't pass your stand. It delivers the buck to your stand. The angle matters. If the trail runs parallel to your stand at 15 yards, you get a walking shot. If it terminates directly in front of you, the buck stops at the end of the trail, stands broadside trying to locate the doe, and gives you a stationary shot at a known distance. That's the difference between a snapshot and a clean kill. Trick 8 is the cell phone, ATV audio for a clean exit. This comes from outdoor life. If deer are between you and your exit at last light, play tractor or ATV audio from your phone at full volume for 20 to 30 seconds, then flash your light. Deer habituated to farm equipment read it as an approaching vehicle and clear the area in seconds without associating the disturbance with hunting. They return within 30 to 45 minutes. Your stand is preserved for the next morning because the deer never connected the disturbance to a human in a tree. This only works on private land near agricultural activity, where deer hear machinery regularly. On deep timber public land, it would spook everything within 200 yards. Context matters. Know your property. Trick 9 is the single doe bleat when a buck is moving away. One flip of the can, call directed at a buck moving away or about to enter cover. The sound requires zero interpretation. It's a doe 60 yards away. During seeking phase and peak rut, this is the most reliable instant redirect available. No calling skill required, no sequence to memorize. One flip. The buck stops, looks, and in most cases turns. I've used this on 4 bucks that were walking away from me, and 3 of them turned. The 4th looked back but kept walking, which tells me he was locked on a doe he could already smell. 3 out of 4 is a response rate I'll take from a $6 can call. Works best within 100 yards before he commits to timber. I carry a can call on every sit, regardless of what else I bring, because the window for using it is measured in seconds. By the time you dig through your pack for a grunt tube, the buck is in the cedars and gone. The can call sits in your lap pocket and deploys in one motion. Trick 10 is interdigital gland lure on your boot soles. I covered this in the 20 tricks video, but the short version is, interdigital is the scent a deer deposits with every footstep. Apply it to your rubber boots and your entire entry trail reads as deer travel instead of human intrusion. A buck that crosses your walk-in trail doesn't get the alarm signal. He gets a neutral signal, and in some cases he follows the trail direction to its end, which is your stand. Validated on buckstick forums and in multiple field accounts. Your entry trail, which was going to exist anyway, becomes an attractant instead of a liability. I've been doing this for 2 seasons, and my entry trail blow rates dropped noticeably. That's notebook data, not science. But the pattern held across 30 sites. Trick 11 is the ground-level pawing and branch-cracking sequence. Bow hunter Elliot Strawman published this in Field and Stream. Hide behind a tree, crack branches, whip brush, then paw the ground with alternating feet in the exact cadence a buck uses when working a scrape. 3 pawings right foot, 3 left. Finish with a vocal snort wheeze. No products needed. The complete audio sequence of a buck working a scrape triggers territorial investigation in any buck within earshot. Strawman documented bucks charging in to 30 yards with their hair raised. This is aggressive and only works during peak rut when testosterone is running high. Try it in early October and you'll spook everything in the woods. Trick 12 is yellow acorns scattered in a raked circle under your stand. Rake a 20-foot circle down to bare soil and scatter yellow acorns on the exposed ground. The visual of raked earth with acorns is visible at 60 yards before the deer can smell anything. Raked soil mirrors what a feeding deer does naturally, which signals safety. Deer approach a raked feeding site. Without the cautious single-stepping, they show toward a corn pile because it looks like another deer was already feeding there. Natural, legal everywhere, completely free. An old-timer in Tennessee told me he's been doing this for 40 years and never understood why more hunters don't use it. The deer already eat acorns off the ground. You're not introducing anything foreign. You're just concentrating what's already there into a visible feeding site that draws them in from further away. Trick 13 is a vanilla extract cotton ball hung at nose height 20 to 25 yards out. 10 to 15 drops on a cotton ball at 4 to 5 feet off the ground. Curiosity. Attractant with no alarm signal and no predator association. Response documented in under 30 minutes in multiple field accounts on Hunting Chat and Archery Talk. Works September through peak rut for about $4 total. I covered vanilla in detail in an earlier video. But the key here is placement. Nose height, 20 yards out, not at your tree. Trick 14 is hunting the date, not the season. This comes from a taxidermist podcast that tracks kill data across years. Bucks appear at the same scrapes on the same calendar dates because individual doe estrus cycles repeat annually. If a big buck was killed at a specific spot on a specific date, that terrain feature produces again in the same window. The taxidermist documented 8 bucks killed from one tree over 6 years, and 4 of them fell on December 4th. That's not coincidence. That's a doe that lives near that tree cycling on the same date every year and pulling bucks to her location like clockwork. If you have a hunting journal or even a text thread with your buddies where you noted the date and location of every encounter, go back through it. You'll find patterns you didn't know existed. If you have historical kill data on your property, you have a calendar. Use it. Trick 15 is the Downwind decoy setup. Position a buck or doe decoy 35 to 40 yards upwind of your stand. A buck that spots the decoy approaches from downwind, which means he walks directly through your position to circle the decoy from the correct angle. You're not hunting the decoy. You're hunting the mandatory downwind approach that every cautious buck takes before committing to any visual stimulus. A mossy oak hunter documented killing a 154-inch 5x5 with this exact setup. The decoy isn't the kill. The approach route to the decoy is the kill. Trick 16 is preorbital gland lure on a licking branch, which is the fastest mock scrape activation method I've tested. 3 to 4 drops introduces an unknown buck in the area. Every local buck that detects it has to visit the branch to read who the stranger is. Not a fear response, pure territorial curiosity. Field documented same-day response on trail cameras from multiple sources. Faster activation than tarsol, faster than urine, because it targets the gland deer use most frequently on licking branches. I ran a comparison on my property, pre-orbital on one branch, tarsal on another 80 yards away, same trail. The pre-orbital branch got twice the investigation rate on camera over 2 weeks. Bucks would spend 30 to 45 seconds working the pre-orbital branch and only 10 to 15 seconds at the tarsal. The pre-orbital tells a more specific story, and the deer responds to specificity. Trick 17 is the cornmeal and salt lick packed into a hollow log. 1 part coarse salt, 1 part dry cornmeal packed into a hollow log or stump at nose height. The cornmeal gives food scent and carbohydrate draw. The salt gives mineral draw. The physical act of nibbling crumbled material from a log keeps the deer stationary for 3 to 5 minutes versus 30 seconds on flat ground. Under $10 for a full season. Quick note, this is bait in every legal definition, so check your state regulations before using it. Where it's legal, it's been working since the 1950s for the same reasons it works today. In states where it's banned, skip it entirely. No shortcut is worth a confiscated rifle. Everything on this list, plus about 55 more field-tested techniques, are in the Buck Hunter's Bible. Scent control, mock scrape activation, rut phase tactics, and a full chapter of old-timer methods that go back decades. There's a 1-page reference card at the back you can take to the stand. It's in the description below. Point your phone at the QR code on screen if you're watching on a TV. Trick 18 is the post-rain entry window, and it's the one that costs nothing, requires nothing, and outperforms every product on this list. Hunt the first 2 to 4 hours after a rainstorm ends. Wet ground absorbs every footstep, so your entry is silent. Rain washes scent molecules out of the air, so your plume is at its weakest. Deer that were bedded through the rain are actively moving and feeding to compensate for lost time. And the woods are empty because every other hunter went home when it started raining. Silent entry, reduced scent, hungry deer, zero competition. A commenter on one of our videos described this exact window and got 59 likes from other hunters confirming it. The post-rain window is the highest percentage encounter window of the entire month, and most hunters drive past it on their way home, complaining about the weather. I've killed 2 of my 4 best bucks during post-rain windows. Both times I almost talked myself out of going. Both times I was the only truck at the access point. The correlation between empty parking lots and full tags is not something I'm willing to ignore anymore. 18 tricks, most of them free. All of them field tested by hunters who've been doing this longer than most of us have been alive. The guys who consistently fill tags aren't buying better products. They're reading the woods better, timing their sights better, and stacking signals that tell the same story from every direction. Another deer is here, right now, doing something worth investigating. That's all any of this has ever been. Not magic, not technology, paying attention, and being willing to sit when everyone else quits.